Production funding for Arts Upload has been provided in part by the Francis Family Foundation, the Hall Family Foundation, the H&R Block Foundation, the Courtney S. Turner Foundation, the Spies Memorial Trust, and viewers like you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Randy Mason.
And I'm Maris Aylward. Our show is called Arts Upload.
And this week we've come to the Box Gallery, that is, inside the Commerce Bank Arcade.
With stories about another small space, the Fish Tank.
Also glass artist Kathy Barnard, time lapses, and some South Beach chamber music.
It's all ahead on the Upload.
The roster of Kansas City theaters offers up a little something for everybody. You know, classics, musicals, new plays, children's theater, melodrama.
And a few of them can mount a pretty impressive spectacle. Large casts, awesome costumes, and elaborate scenery.
Then there's the Fish Tank at 17th and Wyandotte, Kansas City's smallest theater, seats 20, 30, 40, depending on how it's configured.
But the quality of what transpires in this tiny space keeps people coming back for more, and proves that its proprietor, Heidi Van, is one resourceful theater artist.
Merry Christmas to you, my dear. Let's smoke dope and drink beer.
What? For God's sake, you call that flapping? We're being filmed.
Deodand. D-E-O-D-A-N-D, Deodand. Deodand. These aren't words, they're fragments.
Yell.
Go, go, go.
Don't sing it, just yell it.
Go! Go!
Yeah.
Go!
Right.
Go!
The mission of the Fish Tank is to develop new work from concept to concert by providing a low-risk, low-cost environment that nurtures the development of new work and inspires theatrical entrepreneurship. But now I just say it's a place to create, edit, and debut ideas. Or I say it's a small black box theater in the Crossroads that presents contemporary experimental live theater.
There's nothing wrong with adding something new to the holidays, but traditions last because they're fun and silly and just plain comforting. It's the most wonderful time of the year, Dawn!
I feel like it's important to use the word experimental because things done at the Fish Tank are untested. They are raw. They are the first either reading, the first production, the first time all of these components are working at the same time, and we're bringing in an audience to see, like, okay, do they understand what's happening? How do they interpret it? Because theater's for an audience. Everything's for an audience, right?
Right, and that includes a certain window on Wyandotte Street. Thanks to Heidi's training at Commedia dell'Arte in California, with its emphasis on bodily expression, this very small stage framed the Fish Tank's first production in 2009 and many others since.
It's kind of like an experience. It's like a theatrical experience to sit in the street and watch a play in a window. Like, that's crazy, and it makes me a little nervous. All of the window plays are silent. I do have the ability to mic actors wirelessly and have sound projected outside, but from my training in physical theater, I find that the physical vocabulary is unlimited, and also to execute it really well, you have to work at it, and I like working. I like working that hard. The window is an opportunity for me to have a three-dimensional canvas in which I use bodies and space as one would use paint or a word.
If the ground floor is all about the Fish Tank, the second story in this building owned by David Ford might now be called the Aquarium. What began its life as a yoga studio is poised to play a major role in making Heidi's operation more efficient and economically viable.
This room especially, there's many different theater companies that need a rehearsal hall, and this is a rehearsal hall. This has a mirror, it will have a piano, it has a bathroom and a shower and a bedroom. and you're right around the corner from YJ's, and you're right down the street from the Kaufman Performing Arts Center, and you're like in the epicenter of like all the creative people in town. Like, if this block isn't inspiring, oh man, what are you doing?
This new and improved physical plant also includes some office space that Heidi refers to as her white room. She shares it with Peregrine Honig, whose Birdie's shop is also right around the corner, and whose dog Beignet has never met a camera he didn't like. It is to here that Heidi retreats to assemble the pieces of a play she's building with UMKC students from a class called Theater Intensive. Like last fall's Death by Shakespeare, they're given a genre and 4 weeks to create a show within it. This semester, it's the American musical.
I went to college to be an athlete, and so like my approach to theater is very athletic and team-minded. It's like we have a leader, and we all know the play, and we all practice the play, you know, but game time, just be on your toes. Some people think you have to dig and manufacture it in that moment, but it's just like, just be in the moment, just be ready. Train your body to get there quicker and faster so that you can react and respond. Like, I don't like when things are so prescribed. And so like, I'm an actor and I'm doing my actor voice, and I'm like, ah! Nobody wants to see that. Like, we want to see conversations.
This is my grandmother.
And we want to see inspired storytelling.
You said this would be safe. Well, it is safe. Look at the tower's base. We piled up dry leaves. Dry leaves? There will be a slight delay.
Among other things, the steady growth of Kansas City's Fringe Festival over the past few summers has spawned a surge of new plays and people excited about seeing them. That in turn means more need for places to develop and perform them, even if it's only 800 square feet.
It's a theater lab where we do theater experiments. I have what I need to make this play look and feel like a play you would see at a larger established venue with a 40-year history. I have those things.
Oh, that's just the truth of the body, not the truth of the spirit.
I don't have, nor strive to have, more than I can manage. With just one person steering the ship, this is what I can manage. One day I will get a job where someone offers me a salary because of what I did with a tiny room in this building and what I created and how I made it sustainable and productive and relevant.
I have a dream for Christmas time. I'll spend my time with you.
Get out of here.
As you could see, the fish tank's front window could be a magical spot. But sometimes it's the glass itself that dazzles us.
If you've ever been to the Jewish Community Center of Greater Kansas City, then you have seen some of Kathy Barnard's spectacular work in glass.
Before Kathy started etching in glass, she was working with wood.
And as producer Ashley Holcroft will show you, the inspiration for her making that change had something to do with water.
A step inside Kathy Barnard's studio is like finding a key to a secret garden. A garden where flocks of gossamer sparrows soar across transparent skies, and lush galaxies of vines and morning glories sprawl with vivid dimension across quarter-inch glass. But this garden almost looked very different. While working at Hallmark, Kathy learned to sandblast and soon set her sights on creating custom signage. But that was until a trip to California altered her course forever.
I went to LA and I went on a tour of the Queen Mary, the luxury ocean liner. And they had carved glass and it was edge lit and it was bas relief and I loved it. I'd always loved Steuben and Lalique glass, but I didn't know how to do it. But I thought, if I know how to carve in wood, I probably could figure out how to carve in glass. So I just started experimenting.
And having never been formally taught the parameters of her newfound craft, she was able to nimbly push the limits of the medium and soon found a strong following.
Knew more people like through Hyde Park and people who were restoring their homes, and I started doing work for some of the homes there. Got so busy that I asked for a leave of absence from Hallmark, and I never went back. That was over 30 years ago. I did for a while just do the smaller pieces, the bowls, vases, and my work was in galleries all over the United States and a few in Europe. I did that straight for 3 years. It was wonderful. I had so many orders, but what I missed was I didn't meet the people I was doing the work for. I didn't get to see the joy on their faces when we reach an idea that we both love, or they see the piece for the first time.
So she set out to reclaim that spark that was missing by working directly with clients on site-specific pieces. And the breadth of the work that followed was nothing short of astounding. Like this bank in Oklahoma, that over the course of 2.5 years was transformed into this exquisite nature scene. Or like this sublime private chapel in Clinton, Missouri. Or even closer to home, in the dazzling facade of the Midland Theater. And every design, no matter how great or small, starts with Kathy's first love, drawing, and then progresses through several meticulous stages of rendering before it's ready to be sandblasted.
My first task is to have wonderful research in front of me. The more I know about my subject, the better I'm going to illustrate it. So what I do first is I'll do sketches. I grew up at 75th and Neiman, and there was a creek nearby. And so my Saturdays would be to go down to the creek, and I would spend all day there. And the longer you sit, you start to recognize that a certain bird has a certain way of moving through the trees. I'm fascinated by it all. And I'll do many, many drawings like this. If I'm going to do several butterflies, I will try and get to know each butterfly and the characteristics. And I think this kind of helps me get life into the subject. And with that as inspiration, if I'm going to do a three-dimensional object, then I have to think about the whole piece and all around it. So I've developed a way of doing that. I start to draw right on the piece. I might establish where my pathway of butterflies are going to fly. That doesn't mean I have to draw it perfectly on this. What I'm trying to do is establish the flow. I can then start to translate my design. Now I'll put another piece of tracing paper down and do very detailed drawings. The more detailed I can do my initial drawing, the more I know what to do when I get in to sandblast it.
The piece is then carefully masked to protect the glass from unwanted abrasion. And finally, after hours of designing, transposing, and masking, the composition is painstakingly carved into the tape. Kathy then dons her safety gear and prepares to sandblast.
I love waking up every day. I'm very blessed to be able to come in here into my studio and do what I love to do. I love to draw. I love to create things. I love the joy of people receiving and viewing what I've created. And I guess that keeps me going every day. I just love it. I love life. So.
As we mentioned earlier, we're here at the Box Gallery at 10th and Walnut. It's a cozy little space. And if you're thinking, I can't picture where that is, it might be because it's inside the Commerce Bank building.
For many years, this was a flower shop, but when that closed down, Jonathan Kemper decided it might be nice to showcase local artists for people who were doing their banking or just walking through the complex.
The gallery just finished an exhibit called Take Shelter. It explored the beauty and the mystery of old root cellars in the Flint Hills. Maybe you saw the article about it in Star Magazine.
Right now, the exhibit is all about photography of a different kind. Great historic Kansas City shots from the collection of Wilborn and Associates, curated by a guy who has a pretty good eye himself, Bruce Bettinger, runs through April 17th.
Speaking of photography, time lapses can be pretty fascinating stuff. And this next story shows you a man who really knows how to make them.
Justin Majeski is a Sacramento artist who enjoys looking at his world frame by frame.
Usually I try and give the viewer, obviously, my point of view. I mean, that's what makes art so wonderful, is that it's completely subjective. I remember seeing a photo that was on a National Geographic cover. And you might know it, it's kind of famous. It was a young woman from another country, and her eyes, her green eyes. I remember being about 12 years old and just looking at that photo, and it made me feel something different inside. I don't know, it made me feel in a way that I've never felt by looking at a photograph. And I didn't even know that that was possible. I didn't know that you could look at an image and it would change your outlook. And from that day, that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to produce content that would change people's outlooks on their lives. I've always liked video and I've always liked photography, so time-lapse was a perfect marriage between the two. You have to pretty much do as much pre-production as you do shooting. So equal time, 50-50. Knowing where you're going, why you're going there, what time of the day you're going. Those are all huge factors in what I do. There was an evening I wanted to go shoot some starscapes, and there was supposed to be a chance of thunderstorms. And I knew the Milky Way came out at about 10 o'clock, and then I knew that the storms were supposed to roll in at about 11:30 or 12 o'clock, I think. And I knew that the combination was there for something really interesting and dynamic to happen. So we did it. We put everything in the car, drove 2 hours, 2.5 hours to Emerald Bay, and shot a time lapse. And sure enough, Milky Way comes out, and then all of a sudden these big storm clouds come in, and just lightning and thunder all over the place. That's a good example of pre-planning, pre-cognitive thought into what you're going to go actually shoot, and having nature perform for you. I mean, it just all came together. That's definitely my favorite shot I've ever shot. When I arrive on a scene, I like to kind of look over the whole scene. I'll kind of survey and pick my composition on what I think is the strongest, and that's, obviously something that's subjective to the artist. I'll look at my rig, and I'll decide, okay, yeah, this is what I want, and then I'll go ahead and I'll start the time lapse. Every time it's different. It depends on the subject matter of what I'm shooting, of how long I'll shoot. Night scenes sometimes are up to 8 hours. Sometimes the cityscapes are 20 minutes. When I made the Sacramento film, immediately it hit me that there's this really beautiful contrast between the rural, outlying areas of the country that are just beautiful, and morning sunrise and the sunflowers and all of the agriculture, and just 10 minutes outside of the bustling city, this exists. So once it got released, my goal for the film was to get 50,000 online views in a month. And I thought that goal was really attainable because it's a city and there's people in the city. My expectations were exceeded in the second day. It started getting posted on other blog sites, F-Stoppers, CNN. It was kind of everywhere for a little while there. And, just really humbling and exciting. And I like to believe I was maybe born an artist. I don't know if that's true or not, but my grandfather and great-grandfather were award-winning photographers in Baltimore, and my grandfather used to shoot for the Baltimore Zoo and all that stuff. And so I kind of grew up around photography. He had a photography studio in his basement that I would always go down and Google at when I was young, you know. I heard a good quote once, and the difference between a professional photographer and an amateur photographer is professionals already made all the mistakes. And I take that to heart, and I think that's completely true, because I have failed a lot, and you will too, you know, but that's part of learning. Me and my wife this summer are gonna go travel around the western seaboard, and we're gonna shoot a bunch of time lapses and photos while we're out there camping, and just keep putting more content out there, more inspiring content. A lot of people spend a lot of time in their homes, and they don't get really to go out and appreciate like a nice sunset or sunrise or the stars or things like that. And I wanted to show these people that this stuff exists. I mean, this stuff is here. It's beautiful scenery just out your doorstep. And I want to inspire people to go outside and enjoy nature, because it's all around us.
Arts Upload continues here on KCPT. You know, part of the charm here at the Box Gallery is the way it can catch people's attention even when they weren't planning to look at art.
Not unlike a place in Miami's South Beach, where classical music sometimes lures unsuspecting listeners into its lyrical embrace.
Our Center of Florida is a contemporary visual art center, and we have here almost 40 artists in residence where they work in their studios, and we have a whole programming of exhibition series and public programs and outreach programs and educational programs, and we are partnering with many other organizations here in Miami. We think that collaboration and partnerships are a must between cultural organizations, and we are really happy and proud to have the New World Symphony here at the Art Center, such an amazing organization with very talented and bright musicians, and it's a pleasure having them here playing once a month. It's an opportunity of listening to classical music in a very different environment, and I think that it enhances a cultural experience. The audience have the chance to listen to chamber music in an environment with contemporary visual art, and they have also the chance to get in and out and wandering around the art center, meet the artists, talk to them, talk to the musicians. I think that is a very fresh program.
New World Symphony really encourages musicians to explore different ways of engaging the audience and the communities they live in. So we have a number of different concert formats that allow the musicians to explore their own ideas inside the concert hall, and it also provides them inspiration to bring those ideas out in the community, just like you see here tonight.
The name Impromptu sort of stuck out as representing this spontaneous nature, almost maybe more for the audience than for us, because the concerts are planned in advance, but the audience doesn't know they're going to see a concert until they walk by most of the time. So that's the impromptu part of the series.
We have the people who are just walking by, and they look in through the window and they're like, what's going on? And they come in, and even if they only stay for 15 minutes, it makes me happy, because it's like an unplanned gift that we gave to them, and they didn't know that day that they were going to go out and see a string quartet playing.
Arrive here to the Art Center, and they have the chance to listen to this amazing music and see visual art. It's important to find any way to expose the public and the audience to a cultural experience, whether it's music, whether it's theater, it's visual arts. I think that finding new ways and different ways to expose the public to these experiences is really important.
The kids can come right up and sit right in front of us. We've had kids come and sit down, like a foot away from our instruments, and they're just so fascinated getting to see the music making up close rather than having some kind of barrier like a stage and an audience. It's really touching to see how emotionally they respond. They start dancing and singing, and these are all things that would be inappropriate in a concert setting, But if it's their natural response, then this is a great way to let that out, and instead of stifling it, I think it should be encouraged.
Not having a clear program, we kind of walk in here with a bag of music and we look around and see who showed up and what we can do.
When you actually get people to come in off the street, it means that you're grabbing them in a very powerful way, and you get that instant feedback of whether what you're doing is creating a response. And the longer people stay, you can tell how interested they are and that you're really connecting.
Well, looks like our cavalcade of the arts is just about done for another week.
We hope you've enjoyed the mix of music, theater, and visual arts, including our quick trip through the Box Gallery here in downtown Kansas City.
The name of the show is Arts Upload. Till next time, I'm Randy Mason.
And I'm Maris Aylward. Thanks for watching.
Production funding for Arts Upload has been provided in part by the Francis Family Foundation, the Hall Family Foundation, the H&R Block Foundation, the Courtney S. Turner Foundation, the Spies Memorial Trust, and viewers like you. Thank you.